The beginning of the scene, Stella is laying in bed. She's quite tranquil. Her hand is on her belly, and Stanley is leaving for work. Blanche, on the other hand, is nervous. She's wild. She's pacing around the apartment. She can't wait for Stanley to get out of their way. And when she confronts Stella about Stanley's behavior, she is horrified that Stella excuses Stanley. Stella actually says when you're married, you have to learn to tolerate each other's habits. And she kind of just brushes off the whole domestic violence issue. Blanche, however, says they have to get away, that she's going to save Stella, they're going to run away together, that she has a plan. And this may explain a little bit about Blanche's appearance in New Orleans, that Blanche runs away. When things get unpleasant, when things get difficult, Blanche just packs up and leaves. A similar theme that we saw when we did our film study of Water for Elephants. For Jacob Jankowski, when he's unhappy, he runs away, both as a young man after his parents' death and as an elderly man leaving the nursing homes. This idea of running away is a theme that we've seen in two pieces now. A further contrast with Stella and Blanche is their reaction to Stanley's past violence. That Stella says on their wedding night, Stanley became so emotional that he picked up one of her shoes and ran around the apartment smashing every single light bulb. And when Blanche is horrified by this and says, "What did you do?" Stella says, "Well, I was thrilled by it. I loved it." Stella is drawn in by Stanley's animalistic behavior. She finds it incredibly thrilling. She finds it quite erotic. Blanche, however, is horrified by this. So again, this shows us the difference between these two women. We've seen throughout the play so far that Blanche has issues with men, that she and Stanley do not get along. She's trying to manipulate Mitch into a relationship. She's had this little odd tete-a-tete with the newspaper boy. Now Blanche says that her plan for running away hinges upon a multimillionaire friend of hers named Shep Huntley. She ran into Shep recently, and she's just sure that he'll help her out. Stella doesn't want to leave, but Blanche is going on and on about how Shep is going to rescue them. But even with Shep Huntley, Blanche is planning on using kind of an indirect approach, that with men like Shep Huntley, you can't just tell them what you want, you have to trick them into helping you. So here we see Blanche once again using illusion, using her feminine wiles to try to get what she wants. Scene 4 is really just a scene for Stella and Blanche to argue back and forth. Stella says that, Stanley's not always like this, that Blanche just saw him at his very worst. And I want to find the quote here. Blanche actually says, "On the contrary," says Blanche, "I saw him at his best. What such a man has to offer is animal force, and he gave a wonderful exhibition of that." She says that the only thing Stanley has going for him is his animalistic behavior. And in her mind, in Blanche's mind, this is a mark against Stanley. However, in Stella's mind, this is what she likes most about Stanley. She likes that he's aggressive and domineering. So again, this contrast is being highlighted between the two women. The women continue to argue back and forth about Stanley, about his behavior, and Stella says that Blanche doesn't understand that what happens between a man and a woman, what happens between a husband and wife at night, makes everything else in a relationship unimportant. And Blanche says, all you're doing is talking about desire. You're talking about lust, which is as unimportant as that old rattletrap streetcar that rides up and down the street. And Stella says, Blanche, have you ever ridden on the streetcar? And it's kind of a loaded question here. Stella's asking Blanche, not just did you ride on the actual streetcar physically, but Blanche, have you ever truly been in love with someone? Have you ever really desired someone? Blanche doesn't quite understand Stella's double meaning here. And she says, well, yeah, I rode the streetcar. It's what brought me here. And this play on words, this kind of misunderstanding is going to be important later on in the play when we find out why Blanche is actually here in New Orleans. That she has indirectly and kind of accidentally answered Stella's question that, yeah, she has experienced desire. And for Blanche, it wasn't a good thing. At this point, too, we're starting to see Stella is losing patience with Blanche. That for the past 4 scenes, Blanche has been making fun of Stella. She's been poking fun at Stella's house, at her husband, at her way of life. And as the audience, we can see Stella starting to make these little dry, ironic comments back to Blanche. Blanche is completely unaware of this, however. But as the audience, we realize that Stella is starting to lose her patience a little bit. In scene 4, because of William's use of the flexible setting, we're able to see both the outside of the apartment and the inside of the apartment. Blanche and Stella are inside arguing about Stanley and Desire, and while they're doing that, we as the audience can see Stanley coming into the apartment. He sneaks in, he hears the women talking about him, and he stands there and he kind of eavesdrops for a while. And he hears Blanche say things like he's subhuman, he's ape like, he's common. And Stella agrees with her that Stanley is common. He's not wealthy, he's not well to do. But that isn't important to Stella. She wants the passion, she wants the desire. Stanley does make his appearance known. He slams the door. He lets them know that he's home, and Stella comes running out of the bedroom and grabs Stanley, and she hugs him fiercely. And I've always found it kind of creepy that over her shoulder, Stanley looks up and he makes direct eye contact at Blanche, almost to say, you can say what you want, you can think what you want, but in the end, she'll choose me. And throughout the play, almost at the end of every single scene, we see this Stella choosing Stanley. She chooses Stanley the night of the fight. She's choosing Stanley here, that she will always back Stanley. Like the previous scenes, Williams uses sound in scene 4 to help establish mood and even as a bit of symbolism. That Stanley's entrance into the apartment, the noise made by his entrance into the apartment, is masked by the sound of the locomotive train going by. And this definitely represents Stanley and his force. That, like a train, he is going to kind of bulldoze into things. He is a bull in a china shop. He's loud, he's brash, you can't ignore him. But also at the end of the scene, Williams uses that blue piano music. That again, there is this sense of sadness and despair. And that music rises right as Stanley is looking over Stella's shoulders into Blanche's face with this look of anger and victory almost.